What's going on, everyone? My name is Rosendo. Welcome back to my channel. We are back with another video, and I'm in a good mood today, people. I'm recording this video later than normal, but I think I figured out my mic crackling situation. Now, where was I going with this? Now, I want to clarify real quick that there's going to be a clear, this is a thought I had kind of when I was recording last video, and a thought I've been having for a while. There's going to be a clear difference whenever there is a video that I'm recording that is meant to be for the general population, right? That's meant to be kind of consumed by people that are just trying to, you know, watch a video. And there's going to be a clear difference between the videos where I come in, turn my camera on, and I'm more kind of natural, almost for like the people that just kind of want the behind the scenes deep look. For, you know, let's say you find this video down the line and, you know, you want to go back to a time when I'm talking about my tracks and things like that. You're going to be able to tell pretty quickly which video is which. If it's one that's meant to be pretty consumable and it's just kind of more so for the general population, and one that's more specific and it's kind of like, you know, relaxing, you get to see a little bit more of everything and it's a little bit more kind of inclusive of everything. And this is definitely one of those videos because I just spent like almost 2 hours trying to fix this microphone issue that I've been having recently. BIOS update. I mean, for all you computer nerds out there, I would consider myself a computer nerd, although not that much. I'm learning since I had to deal with this. BIOS updates, uninstalling all sorts of drivers, using open source software that I've never used before to make sure I kind of uninstall graphics drivers and reinstall studio drivers on my graphics card that's a little old now. So I just spent like 2 hours doing that, and I think if I listen to this audio back and I realize that it sounds awful and there's a lot of crackling, I'm gonna be so upset. But I am glad that I'm confident it's fixed now. At least it's better. I'm confident it's better. I don't know if it's completely fixed, but I'm confident it's better. So it's time to, you know, relax, put on a smile, and break down City of Rain, people. Because it is December 21st today. You're probably going to get this on the 30th, whenever Sunday is, the 28th. And last video of the year, 2025. Finally, finishing up with the City of Rain that just came out a few days ago on December 19th. City of Rain, my final track. We're going to finally break it down to wrap up the last video of the year before we start next year's video series. I already know what video I'm doing next, which I'm really, really excited for. And then we'll probably go back to some track reviews, some track reviews. But other than that, today we just have me. We have me that's finally in a good mood. Even like if you saw our last video, the Atmos breakdown, I knew the audio content was better, so I'm like gave it a little bit more energy. But deep down, I'm kind of concerned that the whole time the audio might be messed up or something. Yeah, actually, it wasn't the Atmos breakdown. It was making Atmos from scratch, because I don't remember if I mentioned this. I mentioned in a community post I had to record that 3 times just because the audio kept messing me up. So, but now I'm confident the audio is working. It's a little bit later than normal. I'm supposed to be doing other stuff right now, so hopefully it's not too rushed of a video. But in any case, we're here. I'm confident the audio is better. If it's crackling this entire time I'm saying this, I'm gonna probably crash out. But I'm definitely a little bit more lax now because I just spent, again, like 2 hours updating all sorts of things. I had to go into my BIOS like 3 different times. But we're here. We're here to break down City of Rain, a track that I really like. It's a very nice track for the 2025 discography that if you saw my Atmos track breakdown, I mentioned that I wasn't too satisfied with, although I think City of Rain is kind of the one that, in my opinion, saved this year's discography. So why don't we talk about it? Why don't we talk about City of Rain? Why don't we break it down? Make sure to like and subscribe for more, but let's hop into FL Studio. All right, we are finally back in FL Studio taking a look at City of Rain, my most recent track, my last track of the year, and a meaningful track looking at over 6 minutes again. By the way, my next few tracks are going to be long. This is 6 minutes. My next track that I submitted for distribution is 6 minutes. The one after that is looking like it's coming at 5.5. But it's nice because I mentioned at the most track breakdown that I wasn't really feeling creative recently and I wasn't really satisfied with my discography. The fact that my next 3 tracks are all, including this one, are all that long just kind of goes to show that I'm back to my creative, artistic, expressive self, which I really like. And we are in here with City of Rain. Going a quick overview, it looks like it was a 21-hour track. Sounds about right. Mixer tracks coming in at 65. And let's see, we have all these patterns over here, samples over here, as you know, or maybe have gathered, I should say, or if you don't know or haven't gathered at this point, drums in yellow, atmospheres and pads and stuff, or softer chords tend to be in like this teal kind of turquoise color. Supersaws or kind of prominent chords are in green, effects in orange, leads in this cyan, we'll call it. Don't know why these are like vocal. I tend to have my vocals in pink, and these are like vocal effects. Although not many tracks I've had. If you saw Call, you'll know that my vocals are in pink. If you see my next track breakdown, hint, hint, a little sneak peek for you guys, you'll know that the vocals are in pink for some reason, just because I don't use pink all that often. Bass is in blue. White tends to be even more like super kind of ambient stuff, super atmospheric stuff, vague atmospheric stuff, and of course effects in red. So there we go. This is the City of Rain project file. Now, normally at this point I talk about why I made City of Rain, why I called it City of Rain, and things like that. So let's talk about that right now. Now, City of Rain, why did I make this track? This actually might be a faster video. I don't know if that will be true or not, but we'll see. But why did I make this track? This is an interesting track because City of Rain is definitely one of the more artistic and expressive tracks that I've made when not including anything out of my Expression EP. Now, the Expression EP had a very specific style in mind. It had the style of being meant to be taken seriously, meant to be super immersive, meant to be super artistic and expressive. Artistic more than that, where the track taking the form of art is meant to be definitely more serious, more artistic, more expressive, and you want to listen to it knowing that it's not really music, but it's something more than that, which I've said before. I consider my tracks to be something more than music, or not all of them, but some of them I do, and some of them I especially do, including everything out of my Expression EP, and including this track. If you haven't picked up, and I've never mentioned this actually, my Expression EP and this track actually have a little symbol at the top left, I want to say. Is it top left? I think it's top left or top right. I'm pretty sure it's top left. Actually, it might be top right. They have a little symbol. I'll probably explain this more in the future because it's nothing important. It was a logo I was experimenting with a long time. Back when I kind of had this idea of a much more artistic kind of sense of being a producer, and I still am, but obviously I still dabble in things like drum and bass and house. That's not the point. The point is this. The point is you'll see that little symbol, right, in the corner of the Expression EP, and in this one, to kind of show that they go hand in hand of being that serious, artistic, expressive form of music, of art, that you want to know it is that before you listen to it, that I want it to be listened to seriously and immersively, being immersed in before you listen to it. Now, why do I bring that up? I bring that up because this is definitely one of those serious tracks that you're meant to be immersed in, but it's tough to say this, but I'm going to say it. This is kind of meant to be in the Expression EP, or rather, it was developed along the similar line, kind of similar theme, similar time, similar kind of place, and this kind of, in some ways, was meant to be a part of the EP, but not really. Now, the reason I say not really is because there's two reasons why, 2.5 reasons. Number one, let's start with kind of the one that's true, the brutally honest one, timing, right? This is the last track I made out of all of those tracks. You know, back when I think I mentioned in the winter of 2023, 2024, in the winter of 2022, 2023, I was pumping out tracks based off of content I consumed, you know, based off movies, TV shows, and things like that. I was pumping out tracks. And this is one of the tracks that I actually pumped out, the last one that I pumped out based off of a piece of media. I had already established the idea of the Expression EP, and this being the last track that I had in mind, the last track idea that came out, it was just going to be a timing thing where I had an idea of making a track based on a certain piece of media, and I had a super vague kind of atmosphere setup that you actually hear right here in the track. And to make a whole track out of that, the honest answer is the timing would have just thrown off the EP. I thought about the EP in the winter of 2022. 2023. We'll call it 2022 to 2023, and I knew I wanted to release it next winter. So the honest answer is just timing. Number two is the Expression EP was meant to be an EP. So in order for it to be considered an EP on Spotify, I looked it up. It needs to be less than 30 minutes, and it needs to be 6 tracks or less, which is why the Expression EP is exactly 6 tracks, and it's barely under 30 minutes, which just happened to end up that way. I would have had to cut up some pieces if it ended up being more than 30 minutes, but luckily, even with my long tracks, it ended up being barely less than 30 minutes. And the point with that is, like I said, I wanted the Expression EP to be an EP. I didn't want it to be an album. I didn't want it to be my debut album. I want my debut album to be something super, super kind of calculated and super artistic. And I knew that Expression EP wasn't going to be that. I wanted the Expression EP to be an EP, to be my debut EP, my debut project into what my style and characteristics are. But it had to be an EP. I didn't want it to be an album, which is why I kind of knew that, hey, Expression EP, I already have 6 track ideas. I kind of have this one. It's built in a similar place and I could throw it in there, but then it turns into an album and I don't really want it to turn into an album. And this was a really vague idea at the time. So I was like, I don't really want to include it in the EP. It would kind of ruin that. The other final reason, I say 2.5 reasons, is because this track was also, I knew I wanted it to be, and it turned out to be very artistic, slow, and progressive, almost in a very similar way as Journey Beyond. Probably a little bit less artistic and definitely less cinematic than Journey Beyond. But Journey Beyond, if that was going to be the kind of the climax track of the EP, you can't, I didn't want to, you don't put 2 climax tracks. And like, if you're smart about it, you can kind of pace an album or an EP that way, but it wouldn't have fit the pacing of the EP, right? I actually just listened to it in order yesterday for the first time in a while, and the pacing just works out really, really nicely. Where if you did throw in another track, or even if you replaced one of the tracks, like let's say you replaced none of them, but let's just say like I could have made a 7-track EP. It would have just thrown off kind of the pacing where you get. I mean, it's hard to say where you throw it in there. The tracks work really well together in the EP, right? You have the Case Chords, intro, the shorter tracks. You have Betrayal in the kind of in Twilight in the middle. Empty and Alone at number 2 to kind of give you that kind of up and down musical sense. Journey Beyond as your climax almost. City of Rain just wouldn't have fit in there and wouldn't have fit in the pacing and the progression of the EP. So timing of the track. The length of the EP needed to be 6 tracks, and it would have thrown off the pacing are the 3 reasons why I did not include this in my Expression EP. But again, it just, for those reasons, it's like it wasn't meant to be in the EP at the end of the day. Which brings us to this, City of Rain. Like I mentioned, why did I make this track? It came from a very similar place where my Expression EP came out of. Meant to be expressive, meant to be artistic, meant to be taken seriously and be immersive. And it was also based off a very similar piece of media, pretty closely related to 2 of the tracks on my Expression EP, and that is where City of Rain came from. Now, why did I name it City of Rain? Strictly because of the piece of media it was based off of. I'm not going to say anything else. I mentioned the Expression EP that I think 2 of the tracks I made are like painfully obvious to, in my eyes, painfully obvious to kind of decode what piece of media they're based off of. This is kind of another one in my opinion, especially if you know anything about the other pieces of media that they're based off of. But enough about that. And finally, sometimes I like to talk about kind of how I started each track, and this is actually an interesting one. As far as ideas go, this also might be one of my oldest tracks. And I say also because if you saw the Night track, a breakdown, I mentioned that probably that was one of the oldest tracks I ever made. So this idea didn't hop into my DAW into, as you see right here, January 2024. But the actual idea of making a track that sounded like this per se is actually very, very old. I'm going to see if I scroll through my phone and I find a video of me using this thing, which if you saw my Expression track breakdown, you know, I use this. I used it in that track. And this is track number 2. Including Express, that originally started off with me playing around with this thing. So what happened is one day I was playing around with this C major, just kind of giving a melody and some chords, I think. It was actually just a melody. And I came across a melody I kind of liked. And sometimes what I do is I'll just record it, a video or a voice memo or something, of me playing that melody and be like, hey, that's a cool idea. I'll do something with it at one point. I'm going to see if I can find the video, and if I do, I'll attach it right here. It's literally just my hand playing the piano. I want to see if I can find the date as well of when I came up with that melody. But around the time where, probably around January 2024, when I thought, ooh, let's make a track based off this piece of media. And I probably started with just this. just this. And I kind of thought, I mean, I'm thinking in my head, okay, if I want to make a track based off this piece of media, where do I even begin? Where do I even begin? What is it going to sound like? You know, how am I going to craft it? What form do I want it to take? What form do I want it to take ultimately? And for some reason, I thought about that kind of piano melody I played in that video a while back, and I thought, you know what, I could maybe turn this track into something using that melody. And that's exactly what I did. And that's the melody I started with, which adds some chords to it, adds some rain effects to it, because that's kind of what the idea was really based off of, was really inspired by, I should say. And you have City of Rain. So why don't we actually get to it? Let's see how long the track breakdown actually takes, because in my eyes, it's a slightly simple track, but I want to take a look. All right, City of Rain, starting with your intro. And this is your City of Rain intro. Nice slow pad, a little bit of rhythmic ambiguity, if you will, and the rain, right? It's, again, the intro does the very similar thing in some of my tracks in the Expression EP, where because it's so slow, it immerses you, and you need to be immersed to enjoy the track. If you're not ready to be immersed, you're not going to have the patience to listen to 21 seconds of close to nothing, and you're not going to like the track. So it's basically, the intro is meant to be slow to, as I mentioned, as I used the word before, kind of to filter out people who aren't ready to be immersed to listen to it. Because me personally, I love kind of starting and being ready to be immersed in a track, and just having it start with a nice atmospheric drawn out chord, plus the atmosphere and the ambience of the rain. It just already asks you to put yourself somewhere, put yourself in the world of the track. And that's why I started this way. Super slow start. Again, really asking you to be immersed, drawn out, 21 seconds. Throw in the piano. And here you go. This is your intro. You get a little hint of that melody as well. Rain is still prominent. We're going to cut the rain in a second to kind of pull you back. I'll pull you back almost. Into the beginning of the track. Again, meant to be immersive here. Kick on every bar, snap every other bar, on the third beat of every other bar. Nice soft hi-hats. Intro pad right here. Verse pad. There's some sidechain on that, but there is sidechain on it. Verse pad, more rain, pad melody, swells melody, just another soft melody really. Again, just introducing some movement. You'll notice they move in different directions as well. Let's highlight that. Again, it's really meant to be vague, atmospheric, atmospheric right now. Kind of be really ambient right now. Again, giving you hints of that melody. And really putting yourself in a city of rain, really. I'm asking you to, I've said this before, I want these tracks to take you somewhere, and I'm really trying to draw the listener to that place right now with this immersive, atmospheric intro and verse. Nice vocal pad right here. Really nice vocal pad. An effect right there that you'll hear in a second. Extra pad for a little bit more transient. Barely. Almost like a Juno. Almost. And another one. So again, it really swells up right here after this phrase where you get more ambience and builds up, right? Vocal pad, melodies are still there. Again, the big takeaway of all this right now is immersion, which we break the immersion. You're still immersed, but we break that kind of the atmosphere, I should say. The big takeaway right now is the atmosphere, and then we break it once we introduce that kick on every beat, and we just pick things up, especially with this crash. With that impact, I should say. And now the melody picks up, because as I mentioned, we had a very slow melody over here, right? Kind of bits of the melody. And then the melody and the filtered leads, filtered synths really pick up, filtered supersaws especially. Again, we drop the rain for a bit. Really pick up right there. Snap again goes on on the 2s and the 4s, kick on every beat. Hats get filtered up a little bit right now. Synths get filtered up as well. Cutoff increases. You're already feeling, that's kind of the other big thing right here with the atmospheric intro right here. The filtered supersaws kind of appear. And because they're being brought up, it just, the supersaws really pull you in and you're already expecting, and being dragged in by the supersaws, being built up by the supersaws, and being taken to the supersaws. With your lead. A little bit more broken up than what you get in the drop, but again, the real journey here is kind of in what you do with the leads and how you break it up. You go faster right here, and then you kind of draw it out, and again, there's faster moments, there's more drawn out movements right here, and it goes back and forth into your build up. One of the things you'll hear that I really like about this track, by the way, is this preset right here is actually it's a hover chords out of a Serum preset that I found on Splice. There's actually two right here. There's one that has no LFO setting and one that does. So there's a lot of movement in the track with the LFOs on the supersaws. So it actually does pull you forward quite a bit, pull you forward nicely quite a bit. Which you'll hear right here, sustained supersaws into the hover. Hover sidechain, I should say. You hear it a little bit, kickstart gets brought in a little bit. Kick is serving as your buildup right here. Super immersive supersaws, tom fills right here, kick gets faster. Into your drop. New kick, snares there, full set of leads, full set of synths, which we're going to highlight in a second, and a little nice atmosphere that actually adds a lot of atmosphere to the vocals that is really interesting. But let's listen to the full drop first. You got some toms, some hi-hats, listen for the hover, the sidechain I should say. Hi-hat switch-ups, things like that. And that's drop number 1. Actually, I'm going to let this play out for a second because I'm going to explain all this quite a bit. Straight into our lower energy section. So let's break all this down, shall we? You have your intro pads, you have your supersaws that we are going to break down right now. Supersaws. Number 1. Number 2. Definitely higher, and probably, if I had to guess, a more detuned one. Nice. All 3. By the way, I should mention I'm getting more comfortable with my sound design, so I'm breaking it down more. Obviously, in the first videos, I didn't break it down at all, but now I'm talking a little bit about what I did. You know, some OTT, some imaging that I think should be in right now, or I guess comes in the second half of the drop for some reason. But yeah, you have some OTT, some compression, EQ. Listen to that sidechain right there. This imager actually I feel like should be on earlier. This actually might be a mistake. Oh no, because this is the build up, right? So it comes in at the drop. Let's go right here. That's more like it. Yeah, I think it might have even been filtered too. These are your synths. So imager, OTT, and reverb. Mute that. This is what it sounds like dry with effects. What is this? Pfeffer Pro R2. This is slightly big. I'm listening to it back now. I've gotten better with my reverb ears, so it's slightly big. But that's okay. Slightly wide, slightly too wet, but we'll survive. And your leads. Sounding like this. Lead number 1. Definitely your main lead there. Handlebar is actually also kind of your main lead. They both kind of work. Another one right here. Another one right here. Pretty nice. As you can hear, a lot of supersaws. Nice higher one right there. I've also gotten a lot better at knowing which supersaws I like. I've been reaching for these a lot. I'm pretty sure they're in Atomos. I'm pretty sure they're going to be in the next track you hear. And they're probably in another track. Maybe Release might have had one of these or two. I don't know. But I've been reaching for similar sounds a lot more, and I really like that I have some of my go-to leads now. Again, what do we have? OTT Decapitator. I have no clue what this is. What is this? A chorus? Actually, I forgot. This is probably a plugin I got, or a plugin I got right for this track because I felt like it needed a little bit of something. Huh, cool. Yeah, some sort of chorus effect. But before, we'll mute the reverb and delay before. Oh, wow, very harsh. And after. Oh, a lot better. This is very, very clean. Even the reverb and the delay do a lot. The processing of the, obviously, decapitator and chorus do a lot as well. With everything, though, completely wet, it actually is quite nice. And the idea was to have a quite nice, immersive, bright kind of drop. Not necessarily bright, but just Supersaw. I love Supersaw. Giving you the drop. Now, I wanted to mention three things, actually. Number one is kind of the forward movement you get from the build-up to the drop, because in this scenario and this track, you get a lot of your main elements in the build-up, actually right here. You get a lot of your drop elements in the build-up and just a few new ones in the drop. You get the basses and you get a new kick, and the leads maybe a few, like one more layer. Some reverb gets brought up. You had to kind of spice it up a little bit, but the forward movement of the kind of the pull of this track is definitely significant. It's a significant player because again with the build up, it's just it already has everything there. You're already immersed, and all you do when you go to the drop is you add the movement and the bass to it that just pushes it forward. But the immersion of you being in the city of rain and kind of basking in it is already there in the build-up. Again, you bask in it, you're already there, you're immersed in it, and you just get pushed / pulled forward with that drop. So that's kind of another big characteristic of this track, especially kind of, it's meant to be kind of that super big, basking in the Supersaw style track that has you imagining being in a city of rain. Two other things I wanted to highlight. Number one is going to be, like I said, the sidechain on the Supersaws that we're going to highlight right now. Because obviously you don't get much in the first half of the drop, but as I mentioned, listen for that sidechain right here. A little bit of an LFO too. This actually might be muted, by the way, the LFO. It's not. That's not the point. But you go from this to... I actually realized something. Take a listen. It was actually going to be a little bit hard to... For some reason, I had all sorts of sidechains going. I had a sidechain on the over here, and then I had a sidechain over here, and then I had sidechains off, and then on a bunch of other stuff. And it was going to be a little bit challenging to introduce the 1/8 sidechain that I wanted that you hear over here. This is kind of the sidechain that I wanted to introduce in the second half of the first drop. Now, in order to do that, and actually an easy and cool way to do that was I actually use sidechain compression onto the hi-hats because the hi-hats are already on every quarter beat or something, eighth beats, they're eighth beat hi-hats, I think. And B, because you got these hi-hat rolls already in the start of what we're going to call the every 4 bars, you actually already introduced this LFO effect that you heard earlier, right? Because right here we have the LFO coming in from the a Fruity Balance, just a balance plugin. But when you sidechain it to the hi-hats, this does two things. Number one, as I said, the hi-hats are on the 1/8, so you get the 1/8 sidechain. And B, the hi-hat rolls at the beginning already introduce some LFO at the start, giving you something like this. As keep in mind, the synths are sidechained to the hi-hat. Is it this? Yes, this. We'll leave this open so you guys can hear. See that? Hi-hat duck the synths, giving you the 1/8 sidechain effect. And then when we get the roll, you'll hear what kind of sounds like an LFO. And that's probably one of my favorite features of this track. It's not really a feature more as it is a kind of a trick, really. But it's definitely one of my favorite things that I got pretty creative. I thought about it. It was like a problem solution type moment where I thought I couldn't remember why I couldn't just add another sidechain on there. I mean, I think probably could have, but this was already on a sidechain. It was an inherent sidechain built into the preset. I think these were on other sidechains, and I was doing a bunch of other things. And I was like, I don't want to sidechain the reverb, but I don't want to sidechain like things like that. So the solution, clever solution, I thought, how do I go about this? And I thought, what if I sidechain it to the hi-hats, giving you this. And once you kind of listen and you hear for that groove, it kind of really does a good job of pushing you forward as well, right? Big supersaws, kick and snare, change the rhythm, 1/8. Brings you forward and down right here. Now I mentioned there was a third thing I wanted to mention, and it is this. I've talked about before about how kind of the storytelling of a track, where I've talked about progression, I've talked about expression, storytelling, the narrative of tracks. And a good example of kind of where storytelling falls is what do you do when you get from when you transition in your track? Kind of what are you doing to take you from one section to another? What are you including, and what kind of are you drawing attention to when you're making your track, when you're just making your track? The reason I bring this up is because it's very, very specific and intentional that there are no effects here. For some reason, I found, not this, we'll take this. We'll take this. I think this was here. For some reason, I just found that when you have effects in this area right here after the first drop, the storytelling just kind of gets interrupted. It divides the track a little bit more than I would like, because the effects really make it feel, we'll turn this up. The effects really make it feel like the track then has it's moving from section to section, and it loses that pull that I really wanted to get in the track, and kind of that flow that I wanted to get in the track. So listen to this. It gives the track a little bit more movement, but when you listen to the track beginning to end and immersed, what I found what happened is it kind of divided the section a little bit more, divided the track a little bit more into clean sections, when it's meant to be a little bit more of an immersive track overall, a little bit more of an atmospheric track overall. So with this here, again, when you listen to the track, specifically when you listen to it beginning to end, kind of kills the area, the energy right here, and it divides it a little bit more. And then especially, like I said, when you go right here with more effects, it divides it, and this probably had more of a sweep to it as well. It divides it quite a bit. And it just ruined kind of the storytelling that I really liked. So especially when you listen to the track beginning to end without the effects here, and it's very intentional that I remove the effects, it kind of brings you down a little bit more fully, and it doesn't quite interrupt it as much with the effects. And then when you do get a soft sweep and effect here, it draws a really nice boundary where it feels like the track hits this peak, it kind of comes down, and then slowly comes back up. Versus with the effect, it feels like it hits the peak, it just kind of drops, it gives you something in the middle, random right here, and then it continues in the same kind of level, versus kind of, again, being there, coming down, albeit drastically, but having an effect right here brings it back up into the journey, into the story, really. So the reason I mention all this is because this is where the whole intention thing I talk about comes into play, where some people, I always encourage people and producers and artists, I should say, to think about every single decision they make. And that literally extends to whether or not there is a sweep effect here. It'll be easy to just say, okay, well, drop ends, let's throw in a sweep because, hey, I mean, we got to transition to the next area somehow. But it's really about considering, what does the sweep do? What effect does it play on the track? What effect does it play on the story and on the immersion of the track? Do I want it there? Do I not want it there? If I have a sweep there, do I want a sweep later? Do I want it to be louder or softer? Things like that really impact how the story unfolds and how kind of the listener experiences the track, I should say. So this is the whole intention thing that I talk about, right? Everything should be done with intention. You should consider how the story kind of feels. And the interesting thing about it is when you listen to just this section, it actually feels nicer with an effect. But when you listen to the track as a whole and you take it beginning to end, I strongly argue it's better without an effect, because then the story and the progression and the journey kind of comes together a little bit nicely. Even though when you just listen to it right now, it sounds better with an effect and it sounds weird without one. When you take the whole track as a whole, beginning to end, I think it's the right decision. I think it makes it for a nicer story, and that is the intention, and that is storytelling. So I know I talked a lot about not having an effect there, but Again, intention, people. Intention, that's what I'm all about. But we can probably move forward now. No effect. Atmosphere comes in. Back to that immersion. Again, the drop comes down and you get these pads and they feel a little bit slower, especially without the drums. So you're really, really immersed here. Super soft sweep into the next section. Again, kind of revives the journey and brings you forward and starts pushing you and pulling you, one or the other, again, with strings, of course. Mandatory string. I really wanted to play around with the melody here, so you get some vocals, some nice immersive stuff right there. It brings the track to life. Without this, the track was very, very dead. But you get some strings. Again, we're kind of bringing it up at this point with strings and another melody somewhere. Don't know where it is. Oh, okay, I rendered it, that's why. With another melody right here. Kind of two melodies going on. One of my favorite features of this track again, where here you have the string and this kind of flute synth thing. I actually have no clue where it's actually from. Let's see if we can find it. I was gonna say, I thought it was from, okay, it's from Flex. But it's almost like a synthy flute type thing, where right now they're playing the same melody, and then they drift apart right here. Strings do something different, the flute does something different. Gives you two countering melodies that I really, really wanted to play around with there. Let's solo them, just for that section, just so you can hear them. We'll throw the strings in as well. Maybe the atmosphere. We'll throw in the rain. You hear the flute coming down a little bit more, and especially right here, you definitely hear the difference. Flute is going to come up even higher, while the string follows the standard lead melody of the track. Nice little tone right there on the flute that kind of drags out as well for the second build-up. Forgot about that part, but also really nice. Giving you something that sounds like this. We'll go into the part where they counter each other. Strings are there, pads are there, again, super immersive. Effects and sweeps. Impact. Flute actually is on its own melody again, kind of just following the chords. Cake is back, snare is back, hi-hats are back. You can feel that you're in a very similar section to over here. This time you have a little bit more melody, and it's pulling you forward even more. Kicker goes on every half beat. Supersaws come back, being filtered up. Leads are there, being filtered up into second drop with an ARP. Oh, no reverb on this. Actually, you have a reverb, just not on Ascend. Make it a little bit more wet, a little bit more wide, a little bit more atmospheric. And, by the way, I should add, I was going to mention, speaking of the sidechain with the hi-hats, actually you'll notice on the first half of the second drop, the sidechain on the synth is on, but the hi-hats aren't playing. All I had to do was kind of mute the hi-hat, send to the master. But again, more movement there, where in the first drop, the drop starts without the sidechain, and the second drop starts with the sidechain. And then the hi-hats come in. But the ARP is there, the sidechain is there. You get some nice toms right here. More of a hi-hat roll, some hi-hat fills here and there to really switch things up. Hi-hat and the sidechain is on. And we actually just kind of really change one of the melodies just to make it a little bit sharper, which I think it's this one right here. That sounds like this. We'll go through it quickly. Did I click on the right one? Yeah, it is this one. Oh yeah, because you get an E right here. Versus a C. So again, it just changes it enough and gives it some more tone, some more grit, a more feel, expression almost. A, G, F, E. C, F, E, D, E. And in this area where you don't change it that much, the ARP actually gets changed and the chords get changed. Giving you a little bit of dissonance. Maybe not dissonance, but some non-chord tones or something like that. So what we do in the second half, again, hi-hats are on, sidechain is on. But the second half of the second drop gets a little bit more grit, where in this bar you get more tones from one of the lead layers. Oh, sorry, different note from one of the lead layers. Get different notes from one of the lead layers over here. Over here, you get the same notes of all the lead layers, but you get different chords out of the ARP, and it kind of gives that more grit. And then I believe you have different notes over here as well. Maybe, it doesn't look like it. F-E-D-E. F-E-D-E. Maybe not, but something. But maybe that's your resolution. There was something there that probably changed, but I don't remember. Let's take a listen to that. Oh, over here, sorry. You hear that lead right there. That's kind of just a little bit different. You'll definitely hear the A right there. Listen for how the ARP changes with the hi-hat change. Hi-hat switch up with the ARP change. There's definitely a switch up here, but I don't remember what it is. Maybe I'll take 15 seconds to look for it. Okay, I can't find it, and I don't know. I definitely feel like A, I remember including something, and B, it sounds like there's some different tone there. But maybe I'm going crazy. Okay, there you go. The other thing I forgot to mention is this kind of atmosphere right here that actually has some kind of movement in the chords to it. I just kind of found a C major atmosphere, but it actually introduces some really nice tones and movement and atmosphere and life to the drop. So it's actually really, really nice the entire time. Without. With. A little bit more atmosphere there, but again, since it feels like it has some chords and tones in there too, adds it a little bit more character to the drop. And I thought I was forgetting something, but I don't think. Oh yeah, I remember the last thing I was going to forget. I didn't break down the basses in the first drop. Speaking of which, you don't have a lot of basses. I think one of these is unfiltered, and then it gets filtered. Probably this verse pad right here that you can see. It kind of serves as your lower tones, and then your basses actually come in, starting with of course, a Reese. A sub, naturally. Ooh, very nice sub. And a mid, of course. If I had to guess, that's a fuzz bass right there that I've been using a lot. Fuzz bass out of Serum 1. Oh, it's not. Cool. Really nice basses there. All together. Pretty normal. A sub, a Reese, and a mid. Just making up most of your basses there. Nothing too fancy. Quite a bit of compression on it, actually. Decapitator, pretty much distortion on everything. Kickstart, a few other things. For some reason, now that I'm looking at this, especially with this loudness meter, the bass was really hard to get right in this track, and I don't think it's perfect, but I was having some issues with it. I think it just had to do with the fact that you go all the way to an F. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge, and I talked about this in my one way or another breakdown, that certain keys make it harder to reach certain nice notes on the sub bass. Again, really nice C. F is kind of low, but it's not too bad. But again, it just makes it a little bit challenging to get everything right. When one's all the way up here in this register, probably what, 80 hertz? Definitely a little bit higher. The F might be even lower. Let's check it out. Sure, we'll check it out. Yeah, you got like a 60 hertz on the C, which actually isn't that bad. If you went higher, the F would sound really nice. But once you go lower and you get to like 50 hertz on the F, perhaps. Yeah, like 47 hertz, 45 hertz is already pretty low and hard to get that F right on the loudness. So I definitely struggled a little bit with the bass, but I feel like it came out fine. And I think that's everything I wanted to mention. All right, continuing with the track. That's awkward. All right, continuing with the track. Into your outro. Right here. Crash is coming down, pads coming down, or kind of coming in without the kickstart. Big thing again that happens right now is you get your flute and your strings kind of counteracting one another. Your main full strength chords come in, a lot of atmospheres right there. I think the rain is a little bit louder. It's actually not. It was louder over here. Really giving you a lot of atmosphere and ambience right there. Nice tone on the flute. Actually, the flute comes down while the strings come up, which they did the opposite last time. ending you with the track melody on the strings while the flute comes up. Nice intervals right here into your resolution. Is this a C major? It is. So your resolution track. Again, Journey Beyond was your resolution track in the Expression EP, so it wouldn't make sense to throw in another track that has that kind of resolution to it. I actually don't know if any of the other tracks in my Expression EP has a resolution. Intro, I don't think does. Expression EP, I don't think does. Or sorry, Empty and Alone, I don't think does. Twilight, I don't think does. The main one is definitely the fact that because it's the last track, Journey Beyond has your resolution, and so does this track. So again, it would have clashed. But nice resolution, nice with a little sweep right there, a nice effect. Giving you City of Rain. All right, and there you go. That is City of Rain. The big takeaway of this track is a few big takeaways here. Number one, again, it's about the immersion. It's about the atmosphere and the experience. That's why you start with nothing, right? You start with just that intro, with just that atmosphere for, 21 seconds as we established, to really immerse you. This is meant to be an immersive artistic track, 6 minutes long. A lot of things that pull you forward and kind of having you be present in the track and just giving you a little bit more of everything, especially right here. Cake pulls you forward, but you have most of the drop elements and just really delivering you the drop the entire time, especially with the ARP that just kind of allows you to bask more in the drop and in the City of Rain. Kind of big elements of the track. Number two, of course, is just the fact that it's all about intention storytelling. As I mentioned, there's reasons why, the effects aren't there, and there's reasons why, you really want to do certain things with the track and just pull you forward in certain ways. It's about taking the track from beginning to end and as a whole, not in individual areas. And number three, I can't remember what number three was. Oh, I think I remember what number three was. And number three, there you go, your last track of 2025, right? Where you had, I'm definitely going to talk about this more in my next video as well, so stay tuned for that. I'm excited for that one. But as I mentioned, my Atomos track breakdown, you have some tracks that don't really fit kind of my style, my artistic abilities in my 2025 discography. Atomos kind of changed that. City of Rain is kind of the only real track this year, aside from Atomos, that has that style, right? It has that immersive, expressive, Supersaw, heavy, melodic type feeling to it. And that is where you get City of Rain. In hindsight, I might have changed a few things because I think I could have done a little bit better on the storytelling. I mentioned, about dropping the effects here, but I think I could have done some storytelling stuff over here and gotten a little bit more creative and expressive. Maybe not expressive, but gotten a little bit better storytelling. But that's a video for another time, next video. But overall, again, your immersive artistic track that's, I think, kind of saved my 2025 discography and delivered something that I wanted to deliver to my discography this year, because Atomos kind of didn't really, if you saw the track breakdown, it wasn't meant to. So something was definitely lacking this year, and this track, I think, delivered it. Only one track this year, but I mean, if I had to say, a 6-minute track doing it, a City of Rain track doing it, kind of with that logo at the top that's meant to be immersive, I will take it. So that is City of Rain. All right, and there you go. City of Rain. Like I said, I'm recording this video way later than I should be, almost like 2 hours later than I should be. I have to do some other stuff right now. So I'm a little bit behind on a few things, but I really hope the audio is clean, because if it is, I will be so happy that I did all that and it was for something and I was able to record this video cleanly instead of doing all that, recording this video and finding out that I wasted all that time for nothing. I could have recorded it earlier. But there's City of Rain. There it is. I hope my mic's fixed. There is your last video of the year. Happy 2025. I would probably do a recap, of what I've done this year, and kind of thank you guys for being here. But frankly, I want to get going. I just have some stuff to clean. I gotta eat. I'm starving right now. Again, last track of the year. Either way, thank you guys for being here. I definitely am excited for next year, because please expect more track breakdowns, and I want to take that pretty seriously, and I do plan on taking that seriously next year. That way you guys can have something a little bit more fixed to watch instead of just me rambling for what appears to be almost an hour at this point, although it's me talking about stuff that I like. But there you go. As I mentioned in my community update in my post, that if you didn't see, a little bit of a break, but I think next week as well. And hopefully I'll be back whenever I said in the community post. Next track is out for distribution. Expect that January 26th, I want to say. assuming everything goes through. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments. Let me know what you thought about the track. Let me know if you think it's immersive or not immersive. If you picked up on the details of things like the intro, let me know what you thought about kind of this area right here where it kind of feels strange without effects. But in my opinion, in the whole track, in the context of the whole track, it makes sense. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you think about the track. If you like the feeling, if you don't like the feeling, if you think certain things could have been done differently. Remember, I want this channel to be a place of discussion, so don't forget to leave any of your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. But other than that, that is all I have for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next year.